Hey guys, welcome back. It's Michelle again. I've got Ismael Perez for round two. I'm so excited. So, once again, he's the author of Our Cosmic Origin, and he is a cosmic ambassador to the Earth. And you mentioned that you represent a group called the Emerald Order. I'd love to hear more about that. How did you come about the Emerald Order, and what are they like? I mean, is this a whole group of extraterrestrials that are here to help us in this time?
Absolutely. They are what you call the guardian races. They represent various stages in as far as celestial administration is concerned. The highest level of this group is known as the Order of Gold, which is the equivalent to the Eternal of Days. And then the second aspect of this, I guess, cosmic brotherhood of light, we call it the Silver Order. And then after that, we call it the Emerald Order. We also have the Sapphire Order, the Ruby Order, and yeah, those are all the different names of the various groups that are assigned to different realms and different levels of reality. And this is a thing, Michelle, a lot of the star seeds down here are actually working for the Emerald Order. They just don't know it yet. There's other names to identify the Emerald Order. We're also known as the Melchizedek Cloister. And we see the Melchizedek name repeated over and over in the Old Testament when Melchizedek appeared to Abraham and gave him the priesthood. And then, of course, that priesthood is what allowed for the rise of King David's kingdom, which was the most righteous kingdom ever. And then, of course, Solomon came after that. So that same priesthood, that same brotherhood and sisterhood covenant, you could trace it all the way to the early Israelites. And as it continued through the line of Jesus and Mary Magdalene, yeah, even Jesus was part of the order of Melchizedek. So all these, light beings that have been associated around this order are all members of the overall cosmic brotherhood and sisterhood of the Emerald Order.
And it doesn't have to be just by bloodline, right? I mean,
Oh,
wouldn't we have chosen to come into these avatars and be unseen in a way from a spiritual perspective? Or at the time, was that all just bloodline?
no, it's not just bloodline, but the bloodline is what the order protects because the bloodline is actually the pure, undiluted stock, also known as a seraphim lineage, the lineage that could be traceable all the way to Michael the Archangel. So Michael the Archangel is kind of like at the head of the order. He's also known as the Order of Michael. We have the Order of Melchizedek, and then of course at the highest level is the Order of Metatron. So those are the three main cosmic orders that are associated with the Emerald Covenant. So it's not just bloodline, but they do protect that bloodline because that's the bloodline that is associated with guardianship, with custodianship of the different realms and stuff.
Is it from their original seed? I mean, you
Yes.
mentioned that the earth was seeded.
Right. Just like every world, every universe has been seeded by the higher intelligences, by rather what is known as the Christed races. So, beyond the fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth level of reality, we have what we call the Christed races. The Christed races have different names. Some people call them the Soharian races. And these are intelligent, sentient beings that have reached the level of unity consciousness with all that is. So that's why they're considered the Christed races. So the Christed races are also the members of the central universe of the mother universe, which I call in my book the central universe of Havana. So they're also associated with the central race. So the original, you could say the original race that set the archetype for all other races to made in the image of was the central race of the central universe, which is an always existing race that has never had a beginning or end.
But again, how did you make contact?
Well, they actually contacted me, when I was in my early 20s. They told me who I was, that I was actually part of the order, that there were others out there like me that were also associated with the order, and that in time we would all unite. We would all create some sort of like network of light around the world to usher in, the seventh golden age of enlightenment.
Do you think we were activated when it was necessary for us in order to protect us into the times? You know what I mean? Like, it seems like there are many people who died because they came forward with information before it was time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Those were the pioneers that came before us. And they actually set the foundation for us to, speak our truths in the way that we're all doing it now. Like, now it's like everyone's coming forward with what they know and stuff. So, yeah, it's all part of the overall divine plan to usher in heaven on earth.
Now, you've said, so I've been a big fan of the prophecy of the book of Revelation, and I've really done a lot of research on the line of King David.
Mhm.
But you've said that these prophecies have been galactic and they've been for a long time. Tell me about the galactic prophecies. I mean, I've learned there's Hopi prophecy and Lakota prophecy, and there's obviously prophecies of Joseph Smith, even in the Mormon religion, and that are all coming true today. Mm-hmm. And so I'm curious. Yeah, talk to us about the galactic prophecies.
Okay, so all the prophecies that we hear about through these, spiritual figures, they all derive from the ancient original galactic prophecy that could be traceable back to Lyra. So according to the Lyran prophecy, that the last battle between duality, between good and evil, would actually take place here on planet Earth. And of course, with the result of good winning, and eventually that would kind of like restore the entire galaxy back into balance and light. So the original prophecies are, you could actually trace them all the way to Lyra. From Lyra, the prophecies were carried over to the different solar systems, including the Pleiadians and Alcyon. Alcyon carried the prophecies over to the times of Atlantis and Lemuria. And then, of course, those were known as the original CDC plates that contained the actual real, prophecies and the real deep knowledge that was later omitted and diluted by the powers that took over during the times of Atlantis, with Babylon rising and all that stuff, creating organized religion. And of course, that distorted the prophecies. But the original prophecies have always been kept within the benevolent groups, or these, secret benevolent societies that have been associated with the Melchizedek order. So, yeah.
Wow. I mean, that is so cool. How did you get that knowledge? Like, did you do research on that to read about it somewhere? Like, or was that a direct download?
It was both. First I got a direct download because I am a Melchizedek by blood. I do come from the lineage of the House of David and Solomon. And so I also did it through investigating, by actually researching. And I ended up discovering that, the Brotherhood of Light has always been prevalent here in our world. And that is the reason why the Dark Brotherhood has failed over and over to erect their world domination. When you think of history, every empire collapsed because of something. It's not just, they don't just collapse accidentally. There was an intelligent counterattack or a counterbalance to every empire. And that was always known as the Order of Melchizedek. And that's probably the reasons why they didn't allow me to reprint a second edition of my first book, The Secret Government, because in that book, I actually give you a clear detail of the entire battle between what I call the Luciferian Babylonian Brotherhood of Belial Baal, and the Melchizedek Brotherhood and Sisterhood of the Emerald Order, So, yeah, it's really just a war that was translated from the galaxy. This is just like the last residue of that war. But in the galaxy, we could associate the Melchizedek order with the Lyrans, right? With Sirius, the High Council of the Office of the Christ, stationed here in our galaxy. And then we could also relate the Brotherhood of Babylon, or Luciferian, to Draco. So it's the same concept. It's just, it's now in its final phase. This like long war that's been going on for millions of years in our galaxy.
Yeah. And the story is told in the stars. I mean, the more I dig into the stars, there's a Lyra constellation. Obviously, there's Polaris. There's so much information up there. And what is interesting is, when I get a download, there's so much knowledge in this realm. We just don't know until we seek it. And I think that's something I just want to point out to people. It's like, even though this might mean new knowledge to you, and Ishmael might be bringing it one way versus other galactics bringing it another way. He's bringing his perspective because he was given, knowledge and information via download, and then you went to confirm it and to back it up. And that's what I find too. It isn't until you go seeking, to see if something is specifically true. It's almost like the idea comes in your mind, and then you go and you validate and verify. And then those people come to you. You know what I mean? It's like this beautiful net. You draw them in through the quantum field, they come to you, they confirm your research, and then you can solidify it, put it in your book, right? Is that kind of your process? A lot of people have asked me, what is his resources? And I'm like, so I'm just trying to understand your process.
Oh, a lot of my resources come from ancient manuscripts. Some of them are actually no longer in circulation, like the Genehian script, which restores the existence of the 12 major universes and how we're part of the 12 creation. That was a document that was actually restored to the earth by Michael the Archangel. And the way it was restored, it was like it was meant for me to have that document. And then as soon as I got in possession of that document, every other document or every trace of that document anywhere else was completely eliminated. But, unfortunately, I did lose that document, but I was able to capture at least the main concept of it. And then, of course, integrate it with my book, Our Cosmic Origin.
Okay, I'm going to ask a hard question because this
Sure.
is just always on my mind. My journey was inward, so I get a lot of my information inward. A
Hmm.
cell has 12 chakras. The body has 12 chakras, and you mentioned 12th chakra or universe. You call it universe. That
Yeah.
seems interesting to me, as if there's infinite big, infinite small, and we're just part of the cosm. So you've got macrocosm and you've got a microcosm. We're just here. We're just here because this is what we can perceive, right?
Yeah, it's the same like everywhere, as above, so below. So, we're part of the system of 12. So everything is in that order. It's the divine numerical order, 12 constellations, 12 strands of DNA, 12 tribes of Israel, the 12 knights of the round table, anything that is associated with divine ordership is within the numerical system of the 12.
Right. And for some reason, I keep hearing 13. It is nonstop. Like if you take the 12 frequencies of the zodiac and you play them all in perfect pitch all at the same time, you get silence. If you
Mhm.
take all of the colors in the rainbow and you put them all together, you get white light. Everything in the center, it's almost like the center of the clock. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
There's something about the golden ratio and the 13.
Well, there is a very significance to the 13. According to the secret knowledge, the 13 is associated with the hidden. So we have the 12 going around the hidden. The hidden is also represented by the eternal sphere, space reality, eternity. It also relates to the concept of the great divine mother, the original, substance that gave birth to everything, including the creator gods of universes. And so there is a huge spiritual significance to the number 13. In esoteric traditions throughout all of history, the order of Melchizedek have been hiding, not hiding, but pretty much preserving and protecting the concept of the 13, because a lot of it is associated with the return of the mother goddess, the balance of masculine and feminine energies. But it's also the system in which now we're entering, because we are actually, as we finish all these cycles and this grand cosmic cycle that took about 999 billion years to unfold, we're actually going to be beginning a whole new creation known as the 13th creation. And the Earth is going to be the planet that is going to kick that off. So
Oh my gosh.
yeah, so we're going to be part of a whole new different cosmos, and the Earth is going to be at the center of it all. So we're going to go from the numerical system of the 12 to the numerical system of the 13 when the ascension takes place. So everything's going to go back to the 13, which is in relationship to the natural cycles of the universe, like 13 months and 28 days. That is actually the real calendar.
The mind, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the Mayans draw from the ancient Atlantean calendar, which again, be traceable off-world. And unfortunately, here in the West, we've been living under the Gregorian calendar, which is the wrong timekeeping system as to why nothing happened in 2012. It's like 10, 12 years off.
Yeah, it literally says in the end time prophecy of the book of Revelation, anyway, that the devil would manipulate time and nature, and that we wouldn't know the times. And that's why we study the stars, or I have, is to reset the time and the clock, because we did see that great wonder that appeared in heaven when the woman clothed with the sun, the moon, and her feet, the crown of 12 stars above her head. And it's so much happened on the earth plane at that time. I mean, it's going to be the greatest story ever told. It's like what myths are made of. And speaking of myths, a lot of this is played out in mythology as well. So these stories just kind of keep recycling until this big cosmic moment, this big solar flash. Is that a true statement?
That's the grand event that, has been prophesied for not only eons and ages, but, again, for millions of years throughout the galaxy. The event that is about to take place here on the Earth is what everyone's been waiting for in the cosmic community, as we end all these different cycles. We're actually experiencing the greatest of all the prophecies. We're living the final prophecy, which is the overall prophecy, the shift of ages, the restoration of heaven on earth, the removal of the dark forces. But it's not just happening here on our planet, Michelle. It's actually happening throughout the entire cosmos. There's a huge house cleansing taking place right now where all the negatives are being arrested as I speak.
Dang. Do you have
Yeah.
any new news for us before I get into time travel?
Well, just the fact that the ultimate enemy is artificial intelligence. And the entire cosmos has been at war with AI, and because the future and the past are all taking place simultaneously. The reason we perceive time as linear here in the lower dimension is because, um, it's how can I say it? It's because we're restricted. We're restricted to the bottom of the light energy spectrum. But as we move up in dimensions, we actually see it all happening at the same time. So by virtue of that, you could say that the final war against AI, which takes place in 1,000 years, has already been won by us. So future versions of ourselves, which are already angelic, super, humanoids, have already, established the victory against AI. So they're coming from the future to let us know that they won the war, that it's just a matter of it playing out in linear time, but from a higher perspective, it's already taken place. It's already, been squashed. AI is no longer an issue anymore.
I've been told that some people who come here with a soul contract or who are higher dimensional beings think, oh, this will be a piece of cake because they're used to being able to time travel, to go back in time and change anything and then go forward in time and make alterations, maybe even slow it down or rewind it to replay. So what would you say? Have you learned to time travel? Have you been practicing time travel for a while in the mind? And has that helped you get clarity over your soul contract?
Absolutely. A lot of the information that I'm getting regarding the cosmic activities comes from my future self, a version of me in the future. And I was told that many of us actually time traveled from the future to alternate the timeline where we win the war against AI. So yeah, I've been, experimenting or experiencing a little bit of that, where I see different glimpses of the future. And that's why I'm going to be in my next book. It's all about prophecies. I'm going to be talking about what's going to be going on after the millennium, after we win the war against AI, and what life is going to be in the new cosmos as we all partake in the 13th creation, as we begin this new cosmic cycle that's going to last another 998 billion years. So
What's so crazy about that is as you get that download and you agree with it, if it's a download you agree with, then you almost start to manifest it. So which is happening first, the cart before the horse or the horse before the cart? Does that make sense? Like, it's confusing.
Absolutely. And also, when somebody writes things when somebody writes something, they're writing it into existence. So there's the question posed: is the prophet, when the prophet writes, is he writing because he's getting a glimpse of the future, or is he creating that future scenario through his writings?
Exactly.
Like, which one is influencing which? I think it's both. I think it's happening simultaneously.
That's exactly what I'm stuck with. Because I've started to become aware of, okay, it's like sort of like in my visualization, there'll be this huge clock and there'll be so many doors just all over the clock, and I can enter any door and that door will take me into whatever reality I'm calling upon. So if I want to go and see someone at this time space reality, or if I want to go see the future, you know what I mean? And then in the center again of that clock, it's almost like a chambers, and there are all these other doors that you can go into, almost enter into other universes. And I found that it's all about what you want to learn. It's all about your journey and where you want to go, when you want to go there. It just comes to you via inspiration. Have you come across anything like that? I don't know what I'm seeing.
Well, what you're seeing is you're seeing different probabilities, because this is the thing, Michelle. Every version of yourself, different aspects of yourself exist on different parallel realities and parallel Earths. So through the quantum field, we're constantly shifting, and so in each parallel version of yourself, you're slightly different. So every decision that you ever took, there's the actual opposite to that, as if you didn't make that decision. And so there's almost an infinite amount of versions of yourself in that respect, but ultimately it's all going to collapse into one when this multi-dimensional integration takes place. And that's going to determine where you're putting your focus right now in the here and now. So your perception in the here and the now will actually collapse and determine the ultimate timeline that you're actually going to experience, overall.
After the flash.
After the flash, exactly. Because right now it's like every probability is existing.
Oh, wow. Because you can work within it. But when the solar flash comes, it changes things so much that all probabilities are shifted and different because it's a different type of, completely different type of reality.
Yeah, because we're at the hub of everything right now. What happens here on the Earth is not only going to affect the cosmos, but it's going to affect everything going both, in the future and in the past. It's going to collapse everything into a solid, permanent timeline.
Okay, because yeah, I've also realized that there's almost like you can almost just ask your mind intuitively for a point in time in your life where you branched off into another pretty solid reality. You know what I mean? And you're almost aware that there's this other life. It's almost like if you have the timeline like this, and there's a point in that timeline where suddenly it went like this, and you have a completely different career or a completely different set of talents that you developed because you had totally different set of circumstances. You know what I mean? But I've been told you can't easily travel from one to the next. You almost have to go back to that starting point and travel. So you're saying all those are going to merge.
Absolutely. Yes.
I don't understand. Like my mind is blown on that time. The time travel is something that I really want to understand better because it seems like all artists who create music and who create, in fact, even when I look back on my artistic creations, you can see that I was painting the future, and that's why they had to have such control over the artists of the realm, is because through musicians and song and lyric and all that, putting it out into the realm would have been something that the dark, you call them the dark ones, I'll just say, that would have really had to hold control over because people are intrinsically kind and they're intrinsically I don't know, virtuous, I would say. So they're constantly creating, and whenever they'd put something out there, it would need to be highly controlled or have rituals or sacrifices over it in order to control what's coming out and being manifested in this realm, right? So are we all futurists? I mean, is everyone a time traveler? They just didn't know it?
That actually seems to be the case. We have not only are we under amnesia as to who we were before we came here, but we're also disconnected from the future versions of ourselves. Because like I said, it's all happening at the same time from a higher perspective, from a higher dimension. It's all happening at once. And also we could correlate the higher you go in dimensions, the more you're able to see what's happening everywhere at the same time. The lower you dimensions, things become more linear, like from point A to point B. The higher you go in dimensions, you could see everything's happening in the entire circle.
I love it. I love that because again, so the concept of the law of one and that we are everywhere always and that our archetype or our consciousness is available across the net, if you will.
Absolutely.
But it's interesting because we hold this avatar, this 3D time-space reality where it's a challenge. I mean, it's almost like putting together a puzzle, which I love. I'm having fun with this experience. Personally, I wouldn't have picked any other experience. I hope people realize that even if you feel alone right now and you're learning who you are, you know what I mean? It's still so much fun to put the puzzle together. Yeah, I don't think I've ever felt more alive. I don't know about you.
I agree with you. This is the final incarnation, and we are going to be the integrating all of our lives, all of our ancestry into one when this ascension takes place. So I'm excited, and just like yourself, you feel like you're putting the pieces of the puzzle together. I think we all are, and I did. That's why I was able to write my books, to give people, my perspective on the cosmos based on my downloads and my research and stuff. And a lot of people can relate to that. A lot of people are actually having memories as they're reading my book. It's triggering them in a way where they're actually waking up, they're activating. I've had thousands of people thank me for writing that book. They said that book was definitely a trigger to their own galactic memories as to who they were before coming to the Earth. And for a lot, it actually, like yourself, it actually filled in a lot of the gaps, as they have been trying to piece everything together. So
I love it. That's awesome. Yeah, I love the term activator. I feel like I've been doing the same with my channel. A lot of influencers are. We're just trying to tell our story because that's the only perspective we have, but we're really just trying to help people find their story. We're trying to help them activate into their soul contract, into their purpose so they can find the joy too. Because it really
Yes.
is. When you get in the flow of your Akashic record or your scroll of destiny, there is just nothing that feels better, even though things have to change a little bit. Because when you look upon something different, that thing just starts to change, whether you know it or like it or not. And it can change on your own timeline as you're ready, you know? Do you think there's people that are resisting it?
In some cases, but that resistance is going to be lifted as the critical mass, as we reach critical mass, because
Mm-hmm.
we are also part of a collective human mind hive. And so the more people become activated and the more people awaken, the easier it's going to be for those that are resisting it to finally accept it and surrender and say, all right, you know, let's break out of the matrix.
Yeah, I can literally feel right now. I have certain friends that are just avoiding me like a plague because I
Oh,
might drop some truth.
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
and that's going to change their whole reality, and everything that they sense is going to have to be true, and they're just resisting. So what on earth created the ego? And it seems like the thing about the ego, it's sort of that like it's like that dark side of the soul that everyone else can see except for you, and no one really particularly likes anyone else's ego. I've noticed that. I became very aware of my own ego and started to put it into check probably 5 years ago, because I was like, yeah, the ego is just downright annoying. I don't care who you are. Where do you think the ego came from? Was that from the experiments that they were doing, and kind of
The ego
making
came
us more
from
like primal minds?
No, no. The ego actually came into being when the one split into duality. That's what the ego is. And through this process of fragmentation and division, as each part further divided, everything, the illusion set in where everybody was seeing themselves as separate from everything else, when in essence they were just broken off from one big collective oversoul, which is the mind of the omniverse. And so that's when the ego came in. And that's actually what caused certain cosmic celestial beings to take matters into their own hands, which is what we call the Luciferian rebellion. The whole concept of the Luciferian rebellion is when an entity no longer identifies with unity consciousness. It's when an entity starts seeing itself separate from everything else, and so that's when the ego takes over, and the whole concept of service to self kicks in, which is opposite to the law of one, which is service to others. So the ego is very linked to the concept of duality, to the idea that right now it seems like everything is separated, when in all actuality everything is part of one big giant oversoul.
Would you say it's also somewhat of a fear response of being separated? It's almost like it keeps you separated. The fear of being separate keeps you
That too.
separate.
Yeah, because when you're thinking that you're apart or separated from everything else, which technically you're not, we're all part of a unified collective. You start trying to hoard. You start trying to overcome others, manipulate others, because you're feeding yourself. You become very manipulative. You become very egotistic,
Mhm.
and then that's the birth of narcissism.
Mhm.
That's how narcissists become narcissists, because they become consumed within their ego,
Mhm.
and
And they're
they
trying
don't
to
care
fill like
about.
a leaky bucket that can't really be filled, because there's the only
Yeah,
way you can truly feel love is to know that you are love.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So, I'm curious what you think of spirits, because, you know, the more I kind of go out and I meet other light workers, I mean, these are people from all over the world. They come from all different backgrounds, and I notice, and I always wondered if this was real or not, but like some have the spirit of poverty, some have the spirit of abundance. You know what I mean? What brings upon those spirits? Do you look at them as spirits? And is that an easy way to shed the energy or the thought pattern, to look at upon it like a spirit, like the spirit of alcoholism or the spirit of some type of addiction?
Well, the spirits that are associated with addiction are actually archons. Those are negative entities, because it's not really the person having the addiction; it's the entity in them, and so that's why it's very hard for them to break free from that. And there's the opposite of that. There are the spirits that actually connect you more with your higher self, with your purpose. There are the spirits that guide you and protect you. So yeah, just like duality exists here in the physical plane, we also have duality in the spirit realm. We have the negative archon energies that are feeding off your addiction, and And when somebody has an addiction, it's really them just feeding off of that. It's not the person with the addiction, it's the entity in them that is causing them to have the addiction. So
yeah, so how does one release the entity? And I just want to point out that I figured this out just yesterday. When you create demand for something, let's say you create demand for alcoholism or pornography or whatever, you're creating demons.
yeah, well, that's what they use. That's what the dark side uses to keep people as consumers of this dark energy, loosh, because it's also producing loosh. When somebody is an addict and they can't get out of that, they're actually they're feeding off the negative entities. They're feeding off their energy, and that's why they're always in that very low state of vibration, where in a way they're enslaved to their addiction. So it's another form of bondage to the dark entities.
Wow. I think a lot of us that see others who are caught in addiction, it's so hard to bear witness from as an outsider. And I know as an insider, because we've all fallen to the dark side at some point in our lives. I mean, come on, we live in a very temptation oriented reality, And so when we fall, it's like hard because you don't want to accept help. Do you have any opinions on how you can help someone literally rebuke, and then invoke something incredibly positive into their life, like wealth?
Yeah, it's all about your willpower, your intention, and your focus. If you have the willpower to rebuke anything that is not serving your highest purpose, then do so. We also have
see or feel yourself entering into the gray, swipe it left, and then notice the green. I gave her the image of the green chakra, the heart chakra, and how you could start to rotate that and unwind it to open the safe. And in the safe is nothing but gold. You know what I mean? So it was like you just give someone an idea to latch onto so that they can start putting every thought into captivity. Swipe it left. I joke about, and bring in the new, right? Because really you can create that at any time. It might take time to establish wealth. It might take time to, to learn how to love money and how to take care of money, have money take care of you, and to have that open dialogue. But it's so possible, right? I mean, it's so possible. Even if you feel like you've been poor your whole life, it is possible to shift that and transition that overnight.
Exactly. We have the power to shift reality through our perceptions. Our perceptions, our beliefs, and our emotional state of being. That's how we shift reality faster than normal.
Do extra, and I don't even know if I like calling them extraterrestrial. What do you call them? Extra dimensionals?
We would call them extraterrestrials.
Okay. Do they look upon us and feel sort of sorry for us for these silly little things that they could just change overnight because they know all the...
They're actually learning from us. Yeah, we're all connected. In order for them to advance to the next level, we have to advance to their level, because the multiverse rather, is one. At the highest level of reality, Michelle, it's a one giant network of neurons, and we're all part of that. So just like how at the micro level of reality, our trillions of cells, our billions of neurons are working together to make us function. Well, likewise, at the macro level of reality, we're all of our experiences here, all trillions of us throughout the multiverse, I'm talking about us souls in human form, are gathering data for the overall mind of the universe to continue expanding. We're all like its receptors, and that's how it grows. We're all connected.
Yeah, right. And you can draw upon the experience. It's like a synapse. You send out the information and it comes right back. So lately I've been really fascinated with the observer effect in quantum physics, and the fact that when you look upon something different, that thing starts to change. I think that we, the people, are all starting to look upon the situation a whole lot different. It's happening really quickly now. And people are kind of done and fed up with this geopolitical nonsense going on, right? So So I guess my question is, number one, do you ever feel like a prisoner of the collective because so many are still so asleep?
Not at all. Not at
Okay.
all.
You
Yeah.
just work in the higher realms. You just stay in that space and you continue to manifest in that space. And that is what pulls the maybe the others that aren't aware of what's going on, that pulls them in the direction to the light.
Well, yeah, but I also have to ground myself here on the earth. Otherwise, I'd be in the ethers and I wouldn't be able to perform and do what I do. You know?
Right. You wouldn't be able to translate or
I wouldn't be
activate
able to
people.
translate. Yeah. So it's a matter of integrating and balancing the higher chakras with the lower chakras so that I could become a instrument or a vessel of the transmissions that I'm getting from my, I guess, level of reality, my higher self that exists all the way to the 24th dimension. That's how I'm able to do it by grounding myself. Yeah. And
Now,
being a deeper point to that version of myself in the 24th dimension.
now, have you had to learn what each of those dimensions represent? And therefore, you know that when you start operating in that dimension, that you are at that level. I mean, I think a lot of people think you got to go in order. But when it comes to dimensions, you can operate in the ninth dimension, which is the awareness of all things coming together and the perspective of how all things work as a whole versus maybe the singularity where it's like, okay, you're aware of yourself. Let's say your heart, you're aware of your heart and the heart needs to beat and it needs to, pulse and it's aware of its necessity. But then at the ninth dimension, it's the whole entire organism is aware of itself and how everything works together as a whole. Did you go and research the 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, and go all the way up to know that you're operating at 24, or does that just come to you as intuition?
It just comes to me in my intuition, but also it's been confirmed by other mediums and psychics who could actually see where I'm receiving all my downloads and data. Many have confirmed that I'm actually. Some people say I'm at the 33rd dimension. Some people say I'm transmitting from the 24th dimension. So it could be both. So to me, it's just in my own understanding of things, but yet also validation from others.
Okay, so let's talk
There-
about
There's not,
others.
there's not too much research on dimensions, at least not in written form here on this planet. But in the archives of other worlds, oh my God, that is the first thing they teach people or kids when they're, going to school. They teach them about the different dimensions and stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so a lot of people, when you talk about the observer effect and you talk about each other observing one another, a lot of people are really scared of who to trust anymore. Like they can't trust their doctor, their minister, their teachers. And so they're really sensitive about who their teachers are and where they're getting their information from and what psychics they see. Because you just mentioned, you've come across people who see this in you and you learn to trust the observer effect because then you become it too, right? And so I guess my question to you is, how do people know that they can trust? And is it just something that you feel good about? So either they make you feel good or they make you feel bad, and then you just go from there?
Well, if you feel it in your heart, it's accurate. It's truth. If you feel it in the pit of your stomach, it's disinformation. It's being given to you by a trickster or a dark force, pretending to be the light in order to confuse you from your path. So the best thing to do is always go within and follow your intuition, because your intuition is your internal guidance systems. It'll never deceive you, and it'll allow you to pretty much just see things for what they really are and pierce through the bullshit. When it is bullshit.
Yeah. Okay, so the feminine divine and the divine masculine. There's so much to the divine masculine that people haven't talked about. I mean, because it just seems like they are protectors of the realm and they didn't know it and they didn't know how to be protectors of the realm. You know what I'm saying? And the women are really creators in the realm, and they maybe didn't realize how valuable being a part of the creation is to carry a womb and to be able to create life. Where do you see all that balancing itself out in the future? As in, are we going to live in a society like a utopian society where we are equal again and there's a balance between the yin and yang, the give and take between the masculine and the feminine?
Absolutely. And that's what's happening. The recalibration of the sacred divine feminine is coming back to balance with the divine masculine. And that's one of the huge elements that is going to be, I guess, prominent in the new, Aquarian age that we're entering right now, is that the divine feminine, which has been suppressed by the patriarchy for thousands of years, is now coming back into balance. And I strongly believe that at the highest levels of reality, the ultimate creator, it's an all nurturing substance, which I call the Great Mother. Some people call it Sophia, but yeah, we all come from that. Sophia was the one that birthed the Christ. Without Sophia, there couldn't be the Christ child.
Right. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, women have just been erased from the history books. I mean, we're proud. We're not going to come around and say, oh, we're, woe is us. Women don't do that. We don't cry in our milk, but
you guys are stepping up to the plate.
Yeah.
You guys are becoming warriors, activists. I love it.
Yeah. I think it's really amazing to see the ladies come forward in the truther movement. But I also see a shift in how men perceive women. I'm seeing a shift, and it's almost like they're raising the bar, and they're like, enough's enough. But why do you think so many of the women have been removed in the history books? And when you were reading your ancient scripts and stuff, were the women included in those? Was it a different type of reading?
Yeah. The ancient manuscripts all were about the restoration and veneration of the divine mother feminine, or the divine mother goddess. And every civilization out there beyond the third dimensional level of reality honors and venerates the mother, the divine mother, as the source of all creation. So what we've experienced here in the last thousands of years, due to the infiltration and takeover by the masculine Draco, we've seen a huge suppression of the divine feminine, and even through organized religion, they always demonize her as a whore. Right? Mary Magdalene was a whore, when in actuality, Mary Magdalene was the representation and the embodiment of Sophia. Her and the Christ were actually twin flames. They came together to represent the unity of the divine and, the divine masculine and feminine coming back together as one. And they were a perfect example of that. And, just like he had 12 disciples and apostles, Mary Magdalene had the 12 Magdalenes. So it was equal. Yeah, it was very equal. She was considered as equal to Jesus during those days, and they were part of a community known as the Seats, which also translates to Puritans. And the only reason they were secluded and isolated themselves from the rest of the Roman world was because they had to protect their divine knowledge, and of course they had to protect themselves from the threat of the Roman Empire that pretty much dominated the surface world. So that's why they secluded themselves in the caves of Qumran and operated in secret for a few years. It's the 18th letter of the alphabet.
Yeah, plus anon. There's so many things that are coming together where you're like, well, that's not a coincidence. I would love to be like Mary Magdalene. I think all women should strive to, learn the secrets of the universe and be like her and her king.
And when they came to union to have their first child, they weren't just having intercourse like we do. They were actually doing it through tantra magic, which is tantra spiritual, high spiritual sex. And that's how they were able to birth, such a divine child, which continued the seed of what I call the seraphim, right? The seed of the guardians here on the earth.
Wow. And that's not just for Pleiadians. That's for all galactic beings that can mate via aligning every chakra at the perfect frequency. Is that?
Yes, because in the highest levels of reality, the extraterrestrial races, or our brothers and sisters from the stars, they all practice tantra. They don't tantra, which is, it's not just physical sex. It's sex involving breathing, concentration, raising the Kundalini energy, raising, instead of ejaculating, you use that to raise it up your spine in order to activate your crown chakra. So they don't release, they actually use it to transform themselves. And actually, they use it to ascend even into higher levels of reality.
I was told that's actually an energy that benefits men if they don't release, and that something about the Ankh, I don't remember, but it was like about moving those energies up and down the spine and learning to ascend through that.
Yes. Yeah. So that's how sex is performed in advanced civilizations. It's more sacred than the way we have been doing it here on this planet. In this planet, it seems like it's been more like tribal. It's been more barbaric,
Right.
And as we enter this new world age, it's going to be more sacred. There's going to be more of It's not only an exchange of energies between a male and a female, but it's also a catalyst to together evolve into higher states of consciousness through intercourse. It's
Wow.
ultimate
There's
enlightenment.
just infinite possibilities we're not aware of. And so to open and expand your thinking, even to take in the new idea and then to become available to it, then you start to learn it. And okay, so I had a very interesting experience in a visualization I'm being asked to share with both my audience and with you, because I'm really, really fascinated with the feminine divine and the powers that be, the powers within her. And I think, and I'm curious if this is also one in men. One of the doors, I was seeing this big clock, and I chose a door to basically connect with one of my spirit guides. And as he opened the door, he was bawling. You know, he was really sad, and I had no idea why he was sad. So I just went into the space, and it was really dark, and I went down the tunnel. And because it was so dark, my instinct was to convert to my light being, my light body, so just pure light, sort of so as to illuminate this cave. And there were all these children, souls that were quite traumatized. And so my instinct was to just grab a piece of my heart, you know, my golden light, and to give it to them. And of course, they received it with open hands, and then they put it in themselves, and then they were cheerful and lit up. And I just kept doing it, one child after another, until I could just literally start to almost like on a, it was almost like a wheel, and I was spinning on a wheel. I was just letting all this like orbs fall down into the children. And, you know, I remember coming out of that visualization feeling a little exhausted, like I'd just given a big part of my soul, but it felt right. You know, like I always checking in to say, did I just give a little too much or what, you know? Well, 2 weeks ago, that vision probably happened 4 months ago. 2 weeks ago, my angels were saying, you know why he was crying, right? And I said, no, I really had no idea why he was crying. He said, because those souls had been killed. They had died. And you know, you gave them new life, right? And I said, no, I had no idea that I was giving them new life. And so I don't know if these are sparks of ideas or if this is just like a feminine divine ability. And it's hard to even know how that manifests in the 3D realm. Do you know what I mean? It's just, it starts as an idea or like a movie you're playing out in your mind, but wow, it felt so powerful. I mean, I could cry. It really, and I didn't have a question in my mind. There was no sadness in the moment. I'm crying from joy, you know?
Oh,
Yeah. So anyway, I just was wondering, do you think that it's hard to bear our souls. I don't know if you ever come across that, but it's like the angels are so loud. It's time, it's time, it's time, but it's still hard to bear your soul in the 3D. I can do it easily in the 5D. But anyway, I was just curious if you had any opinions about that experience and if you have light workers that are coming and sharing stuff like this to you.
you're actually the first one has ever shared anything like that. So it is an honor to be here. You are a great divine soul representing the divine mother goddess. You're an expression of Mary Magdalene.
Thank you. Yeah. Do you ever do numerology? Like, do you ever look at the gematria of things and look at it like a feedback loop?
I personally don't, but I have others that have, and you know, it's very accurate. You know, it's the science of the divine. It's the science of the cosmos, astrology, numerology. Everything has to do with planetary and stellar alignments because everything's in motion. So it's very accurate, you know, but do I practice it? No, I don't have a tarot deck. I'm not out there, you know, practicing astrology or anything.
Yeah.
I'm just a cosmic ambassador.
Yeah. Well, I've been using this new knowledge to shift the minds of men and women about, you know, some of the geopolitical stuff that have been going on. And because we're really over the target with getting people to establish their republics again and to bring back common law, which is what Moses was teaching, which is what Jesus was teaching. And you know, he had created ecclesias, which were the modern day version of an assembly. And he was helping people reestablish common law. And one of the things that I'm constantly doing right now is, in order to protect myself and my family, is constantly asking for feedback. Is it time? Is it time? Is it time? Right. So I was about to get on stage in the Truth Tour. And whenever I see 47, that tells me time. It's time. And so I looked at the clock the night before the speech and it was 10:47. I went up to my hotel room, took about 5 minutes. I get in there, and again, the time is 10:47. I chat with my girlfriend for 35 minutes, and I go to bed, and again, the time is 10:47. It's as if I stopped time for 45 minutes, just to confirm it was the timing. Do you know what I mean? Is that even possible, or is that in my head, or is my phone sentient?
No, it's very possible. It's very possible that you're actually manipulating time. Some
Wow.
people are starting to do that. Yes.
And then I woke up in the next morning, and the first moment that I looked at my clock, it was 10:47. So it was a
Also,
4-time indicator.
it could also be a synchronicity. That's something that you are aligning with something huge. That something huge is about to happen in your life. A blessing. I don't know what it is, uh, but that's a significance of that. That's
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
I'm just telling people, don't underestimate your abilities. Don't underestimate your perception. Don't underestimate the observer effect. Don't underestimate that you are one with everything.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that there's infinite knowledge that you can connect to if you call it in, just like you did. And I just really want people who are cynical to open their minds a bit. So I hope that we both activated some people today.
I think we did.
I think we did too. Well, Ishmael, as always, it's such a pleasure. I hope you come back for a third interview at some point in time. If it feels right, I'll let you text me.
For sure. Thank you. Is it Mickey?
It's
Mickey, right?
Michelle. I mean, I'm trying to switch to Michelle.
I'll just call you Michelle.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, it's funny because they have a new resonance, and I'm trying to even call upon myself, but that's the name I chose when I came in. So I'm going to continue to stick with it.
That's a very sacred name. Michael the Archangel's twin flame counterpart is Michelle, or Faith. She goes by Michelle or Faith. Faith Michelle.
I've always felt like I was going to change my name someday. But it was like the grown-up name, and I wasn't ready to grow up yet. And I'm 5'10", and I don't like to intimidate anyone. I always want to keep it simple and light. I try not to make anyone feel uncomfortable around me. So Mickey suited me then, but now I do think it's time to hold my honor.
You should. Just like how we have 7 male archetypes, right? Michael, Gabriel, Uriel, Raphael. We also have the 7 female archetypes: Mary, Faith, Hope, Christine, Michelle, Faith, and Aurora.
Oh, I love it. I love that. Well, thank you so much, Ishmael. We'll have you back again soon, I hope.
We will. Thank you, Michelle.
All right. Talk soon. Bye.
Bye.